Hi folks, you're with Tacitus Today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the increasing and encroaching, almost complete politicisation of our legal system in the West. The once independent courts are independent no longer. The once independent judges are now radical activists, and we just see this more and more and more. And the number of independent judges are fewer and fewer. And all across the Western world, the globalist-controlled Western governments, the United States, Britain, Canada, Australia, are determined to place activists into the roles of judges and magistrates and lower court judges and so on. So we need to accept this is happening. It's very intentional. It's not accidental. It's not a byproduct. It's not a pursuit of social justice or anything like that. It's part of the globalist agenda. If you can cause the complete breakdown in the independence of the legal system, then no one has faith in it, or no one believes in it, or views court cases as a way of achieving personal confirmation if you're trans or something. Then the legal system becomes a toy to be played with and used by the globalists to increase their power, but also just to create a social dystopia that prevents people from organising to oppose or question or challenge the imposition of the globalist ideology and the globalist project. So let's have a look at this. Now, there was a recent case in the United Kingdom where a Muslim judge who has been, according to the social media posts he's been involved in, is anti-Israel, pro-Islam, pro-Hamas, pro-Palestine, and yet is somehow hearing cases that involve the Hamas and Islamic activism. So now the requirement is for any or used to be, I mean it's gone now, but it used to be, and it was a very important standard, was if you have any involvement with or know anything about or have strong feelings about a particular case, a legal case, court case that's coming to court, and you're the next judge, sort of, next cab off the rank, as it were, you're the next judge, then you say, no, I can't do that case. I can't hear this case because I know someone involved, or I'm a religiously devout, or I've got shares in that company or something like that. So they can just say, no, I can't hear that case. I've got a conflict of interest, whether it be a moral conflict of interest or financial or personal, doesn't matter. But the judge says, no, I can't be completely independent-minded about this, or I may not be able to, or I may be influenced by my feelings on the matter, so I'm going to recuse myself from this case to avoid any potential conflict of interest. Now, this would happen typically in the back room. You wouldn't hear it, wouldn't be played out in public. So the clerk of courts that says, okay, this is the next case to be heard, on the production line. This is the next case to be heard. You're the next judge, next cab off the rank. A judge has got no other case to hear, or they've just finished a case or whatever. So then you say, okay, here's the judge, here's the next judge off the rank, here's the next case, and off you go. And the clerk of courts would, or typically, I'm thinking about Australia now, they may have different titles in other jurisdictions, but the clerk of courts, the administration, if you like, of the court would hand that out. But somehow in this case, in the United Kingdom, somehow an activist Islamic judge is given a case to hear that involves Islamic activist people being brought to court. So let's consider this for a minute. Now, the clerk of courts would know that there's a conflict of interest, so they wouldn't need to. Typically, the clerk of courts would see, the obvious conflict of interest and would just say, no, okay, all right, let's pass on that Islamic judge. Who's the next judge? It's Billy Bob Smith. Okay, Billy Bob, can that? So they do. So that would happen in the back room. Let's just suppose that administratively doesn't occur, which most of the time it does, for that sort of brazen conflict of interest issue there, which it is. Then the next thing would be that the judge who is absolutely determined and bound to be, has taken an oath to be completely independent and impartial, and to have no feelings about a particular case, other than, of course, the evidence that's presented at trial. And that judge would go, "No, look, I can't hear this. I've got strong feeling. I'm Islamic. I've got strong feelings about Islam. I've got strong feelings about Islam as being oppressed everywhere in the world. I've got a strong anti-Israel views. I've made media postings to that effect, so I can't hear this case." So there's two levels but somehow as the thing unfolds, effectively an activist Islamic judge is given a case to hear which involves trial of Islamic activists. Now that can't happen in a legal system that's dedicated to the facts, evidence, the rule of law, due legal process, impartiality, independence. It cannot happen in an independent judicial system. But it not only did it happen here, but you had all the possible checks and balances against something like this happening. All of it fell apart. None of it acted here. And an Islamic activist judge here. Now, so what is this judge doing? Does he give these Islamic activists a harsh sentence? No, he just lets them off. No charges, nothing. Just walk free, and that's the end of it. Now, so the next level of appeal, or the next level here, is that the Department of Prosecutions that brings the case, that by the way didn't seem to be anywhere near as aggressive in pursuing this case as they were or as they are in, say, a straight white Christian male who may misgender somebody, or a Christian woman who may sing Amazing Grace in a public park. She'll be prosecuted with great vigor. But these people, it's fairly soft. Read junior lawyers given the job. He doesn't seem to be trying very hard. So the next day will be the Department of Prosecutions that brings the case against these three Islamic activists would say, all right, then, well, look, I don't agree with the judge's case. We're going to appeal it to a higher court. Now, to my knowledge, at least, that hasn't happened. They've just dropped it. Now, that would suggest they were never very serious in the first place. It was all for show. So pretty much every sort of standard there that's put in place to ensure independent judicial views and the cases being heard, all of it fell to pieces. None of it was applied, and so that to me is a stark reminder and indication just how far our judiciary has been politicised, how far it's fallen, and how much the globalists have undermined it, and willfully and purposefully so. Now, it's not that it can't happen. The loss of independence. For example, there was a judge who believes that one of his children was molested at high school by a teacher. And then there's a case that comes along. He's very quiet about this, so I don't know how publicly known it is, but whether his fellow judges or anyone in the court would know. But a case comes to him, is given to him, where he's got to hear a court case about a teacher who has allegedly sexually molested high school children. So this is a case where the judge has very strong feelings about this, and is on the lookout for vengeance against those who he believes, in a wider ideological sense, harmed his child. A child who's never recovered from that psychologically. So instead of recusing himself, which he should have done, he's a straight white male. Instead of recusing himself, which he should have done, he heard the case and gave, the most, the range of sentencing was for, I don't know the exact, but say it's between 5 and 10 years prison, for example. I mean, the guy got the full 10 years. Now, in my view, the judge should have recused himself. If I'm going to hear a case that I have strong feelings about, I'm not a judge, but were I to be a judge, then as tempting as it may be, I have the power to deal a blow against this evil. So it must be compelling to people of weak moral character. But the reality is you have to say, no, I'm not going to do it. I must recuse myself. It is important that somebody who's completely independent, completely impartial, and who is going to focus on the evidence as it's produced in court and the facts as it's going to focus on that. And if the person's guilty, fine, then send them to prison or impose the penalties as prescribed under law. But don't fucking play with it and don't politicize it and don't make it a personal issue of vengeance. Now, this is, there are many cases, and when I go through the cases, like climate change activists are arrested and somehow a super pro-climate change judge gets to hear the case. How is that even possible? And yet it is. So clearly there's a conspiracy between, I would argue, a conspiracy between the prosecution's department, which is shot through with activists, by the way, various elements of the police force, the administration of the court. If you can control the administration of the court, then you can control which judge hears which case. So if you've got an activist as the clerk of courts, which a lot of them are now, in my opinion, then you can allocate cases such as a climate change case. Well, I know Judge Billy Bob and Judge Jimmy Jack and Judge Billy Jean, they're all pro-climate change, super pro-climate. They're totally on board, placard waving, attend marches. They're super pro-climate change. So I'll give those judges these cases to hear, and they'll let these people off. They won't give them any penalty. There'll be no fines, no prison time, nothing. They'll just walk straight out the courtroom door. And in some cases, the judges will even say, "You're doing great work there. So, you keep it up," and let them off. So brazen and blatant activism in the court. But not that the judges aren't activists, they are. But the clerk of courts can ensure that those judges, those activist judges, hear those cases. Another one, a woman who became a judge, believes she was raped by a number of different men when she was younger. Now, her interpretation and definition of rape is certainly very, very broad, but nonetheless, she claims that, and she constantly is hearing rape cases. Now, this is an outrageous conflict of interest. Now, look, if the evidence is 100% that the guy didn't do it, she'll make that verdict. But if it's even 80-20, 90-10, there's the slightest sliver of doubt or slightest sliver of a possibility the woman could be telling the truth, and she'll decide in favour of the woman. Now, she's got an unenviable reputation of losing pretty much every case on appeal, but that doesn't matter. The process is the damage. The guy, if he wins, he avoids going to prison, but he's bankrupted for life. I mean, he'll never recover his financial position after that. So she's already got her vengeance on that alone. Why does the clerk of courts give her those cases? Why is she getting those cases? Why is she not recusing herself? So there needs to be, I think, and I say this reluctantly because whenever you try and hold judges to account, it automatically leads to political tampering of one sort or another. So this is said with great reluctance, but there needs to be a review of every case that any judge hears to check for conflict of interest. Now, you could go the ultimate thing where, well, this judge is going to hear a case involving Christians, and they went to primary, junior school. They attended a kindergarten religious school, so they can't hear the case because that's a conflict of interest. So, where do you draw the line? So there needs to be very clear codes and definitions around what is and isn't conflict of interest. But at the moment, we've got a situation where there's more and more judges who are appointed on the basis of being radical activists. Then there's a smaller and smaller chance that you will get an independent judge, particularly where the judge's activism is married up to the case. Instead of the reverse, where they're meant to recuse themselves, or the clerk of courts is meant to ensure avoiding conflict of interest, it's gone in exactly the opposite direction. Now the court system is desperately trying to put activist judges there to hear the case, so that a politicized outcome can be achieved. We really need to understand the enormity of this. What was once an independent, mostly, it wasn't perfect, what was once a mostly independent legal system where the rules of evidence, due legal process were absolutely critical. Now it's gone the other way. Rules of evidence, due legal process, independent judges, independent courts. That's all fucking bullshit. That's Nazi bullshit. What we're achieving here is we're starting at year zero and reinventing the whole world on the basis of activism and ideology and lies and so on. It's a terrifying thought for someone who's been through the legal system myself a number of times, preparing documents, all sorts of things. To me, this is one of the biggest areas where Western society is being damaged, and damaged ruthlessly by people who are premeditating its damage. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.